Everybody's got a price. Everybody's gonna pay.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of Sharp Bets and Fantasy Sets. I'm your host, Nick Fiorentino, and alongside me are big time Tim Sikora and Chris Shaw. How we doing, fellas?
Doing good, brother. Doing good, man. Glad to be back. Week 2 of the preseason.
Week 2 of the
We good, man. We good. We here. Let's go. Football's underway. The preseason games are going. Life is good right now.
I was in Atlantic City over the weekend and had a good time. I guess it would have been Sunday night watching the Trey Lance experience at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's, and it was pretty enjoyable. I was the only one there because apparently Atlantic City is pretty dead on a Sunday night. I digress.
Yeah, it shuts down after Friday and Saturday, but that thing called work on Monday comes pretty early.
Yeah. Work
Sure
always getting in
does.
the way. Have a good time.
Well, appreciate everybody jumping on for episode 2, like I said, and we're going to be talking all things fantasy, but really we're going to be talking all things your questions because the show today is all about your questions. Started as fantasy-related questions, but as you can see, based on the questions as we read them, some of them are not fantasy-related. Some of them are not even football-related at all. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but before we do that, we'll just touch base on a couple promotional stuff. So again, thanks for joining us. You could follow us on Twitter and Twitch at SBFS Show. You can also follow all of our shows on the YouTube channel under TruExact Radio, TruExact Radio. There's a bunch of TruExact shows coming down the line. Mr. TruExact himself, Scott, is doing an entire month dedicated to Nickelodeon. So if you're I guess what would that be, a 90s kid like us? Sir, I don't know. Did they have Nickelodeon in the 70s? But okay.
It's tough.
Anyway, we got Nickelodeon month, and it should be pretty good. We have Phil Moore, Nick Arcade creator, and Clarissa, creator of Are You Afraid of the Dark? That would not be the same Clarissa from Clarissa Explains It All, right? That was Melissa Joan Hart, I think. Tim doesn't watch anything, but
That's not a movie, Nick, so I might have watched it one time.
you definitely never watch Clarissa Explains It All. What Clarissa had a reptile for a pet. What was it?
God bless you.
Okay.
And we'll move on.
Summer Sanders from Figure It Out will all be guests on the show. So it was an alligator. We'll all be guests on the show, and it should be pretty good. We're enjoying that stuff. And without further ado, I'm just reading some of the questions. So guys on Twitch, throw your questions up there. We collected a lot of the questions. Hopefully you guys did too from various avenues. We'll get this one right out of the way. If you owned a boat, what would you name it? That was from Mr. E. I will go first. I would name it the Orca. Tim doesn't get that reference, but Tim, what would you name your boat?
I would name my boat would be named Boat the Goat.
Okay. Sir, what would your boat be?
Sir of the Sea.
Sir of the Sea. Nice. Okay.
I get it. I get it. No pun intended.
Now that we got that out of the way, first football-related question goes out to a buddy of mine, Mike, and he basically wanted to know, so obviously Travis at the end, Linz Frank out for the season. Looks like James Robinson is back to being the man for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've seen him go late as round 7 and 8. I had him really not pegged on any of my lists. I was not interested in taking him. The question now becomes, where would you move him up in your draft boards? Tim, do you have any feeling of where you would take him, how early you would take him? I saw experts on Twitter, say as early as the end of round 2, and I've seen everything through round 6. So what would you guys do?
I'm pegging him exactly where I had the former number 1 running back. I'm just going to exchange our spots. I'll take him in the 5th, where I took. All right. So, truth be told, I had 3 drafts, and in 2 of the drafts, I have him had him as my running back 2. So it's not a good start for your boy for the fantasy season, which brings me to my first point of why are people drafting so early? God, just wait till the end. I don't know how many fantasy leagues you guys are in, but it takes an hour and a half, maybe two at max to do a fantasy draft. Just cram them things in at the very end. I don't care if it's the day before the season starts. There's no reason to do it 2-3 weeks out for people to get hurt. Especially, listen, if it's a $20 league, I don't care. If it's for $100, that shit better be after all the preseason game, or at least after preseason game 3.
Yes, they're like an hour or 2 hours, but most of the leagues, like most of the drafts, are live. Like where you actually have to show up to a location. So like when you have all these numerous drafts in 1 week, it gets a little hectic. Like if they were all online, no problem. But showing up to a location and have to say, oh, let's draft. Okay, let me leave here and go somewhere else to do another draft. It gets a little hectic. But I'm with you. I do like the drafts late just because for this reason, like if you're high on somebody, let's get to the regular season before they get hurt. Or hopefully they don't get hurt. But if they're going to get hurt, let me just get a game out of them.
So full disclosure, I'm in a league last year where I finished dead last, which happens in leagues where 5 of your first 6 players all get hurt. Not to make excuses, but
you were the 49ers of the league, huh?
Yet again. So apparently last week I made a comment doubling, and I'm going to double down on that same comment here, where we talked about when to draft, and my feelings were I feel good based on the research I do earlier in the year before, as camp just starts and everything, that I'm going to bet on the fact that I feel like I know more than the people that I'm facing, and that I can kind of outsmart them. So case in point would be a guy like Trey Lance, who I think or even Justin Fields, and I know he got blown up by the Bills, but imagine like telling your franchise that Andy Dalton is the guy you're going to start. Like I don't believe that Andy Dalton is. I'm not even a believer that Andy Dalton is going to start week 1.
It's been confirmed. They announced he's starting week 1.
The first half.
Saying he's starting the game.
when he is under center, I will and taking that first snap, I'll believe that. But
they announced that Fields is playing the last preseason games, but Dalton will start the regular season.
Same thing with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. So I would look at where those guys are going in drafts when leagues first opened up versus where they're going now. A guy. The running back for the Denver Broncos, who we talked about last week. The Denver Broncos traded up to draft him. Melvin Gordon is an older running back with injury history. So I felt like I would be confident in getting him in probably round 8, where he would have went at the beginning of when leagues first opened up. Well, he went in round 4 in the league that I was just in, and he's going as early as round 3 because I think people kind of look at the same thing. Now, they're paying Melvin Gordon a lot of money, and sometimes money kind of trumps everything, but if you're going to trade up for a running back, I think he's going to be somebody who's going to be an integral part of your team. So that's what I meant by saying that I would double down on knowing more early on. Injuries are going to happen in football. Yeah, the closer to the draft, the shorter the amount of time that injuries could possibly happen, but injuries are going to happen. You're going to work the waiver throughout the season anyway. So that's just my feeling.
The only thing that saved me in both of those leagues is the way that I drafted. So I didn't draft the tight end early. I didn't draft the quarterback early. So I just went wide receiver, running back for the first 7 rounds. So on my bench, I had I forgot what I had. The running back for the Falcons.
Mike Davis,
thank you. So I just plugged him in and won. And the other one, I had Kareem Hunt on the bench because I just kept drafting. I needed I wasn't going to draft the tight end 8 when I had a arguably starting running back caliber guy still on the board. I just wasn't going to do it. So luckily it didn't hurt as bad as it could have. But if I was in a 14-team league, like Nick drafted the very next draft after I did the first 2, I would have taken him, and that would have put me in a gigantic hole in a league that's worth more money than I would be comfortable drafting early.
We got a question from Christy, which we'll get to, but continue to throw in your questions. And guys, as I'm talking, monitor to see if there's any questions, and we'll get to the questions that you guys have written down too.
Yeah, I've got a couple, man. Just let me know. I got them lined up.
I took in that one league, I was lucky enough to get the second pick, and the kid before me, again, referencing earlier before saying that I feel like I'm confident in knowing more than the people around me, took Alvin Kamara with the first overall pick, which was probably one of the dumber moves, but who knows?
It's not your team, so
I took CMC. Thank God, I took CMC, and because I had CMC, I went with kind of a different strategy, like a zero RB strategy, where you have an elite running back, and you can only really do it with the top three. You might be able to do it with Kamara, I guess, considering the top three, but really it's with Dalvin Cook and CMC. And the idea behind it is to load up on those guys because they get over 20 points every single week. And then just load up on pass catchers, where I think the league is very, very deep. So I went big time wide receivers. I went tight end early. And my backup, or my second running back, is A.J. Dillon. But it's not as tough a pill to swallow having him when your wide receivers are Keenan Allen. I did take Jamar Chase with my third wide receiver. I also have CeeDee Lamb as my second wide receiver, and my tight end is Mark Andrews. So I have a lot of pass catchers. My flex position is Laviska Shenault, so I feel pretty good about where I'm at in that league with pass catchers in a 14-team league. Sir, what's up?
No, to that point, like, actually, in the league I drafted, I actually did the opposite. Like, I had the first pick, so I went C-Mac. But I loaded up on, like, my first three picks were all running backs. Like, everybody was taking, some people took, like, receiver running backs, but I figured, I was like, let me load up on all running backs and try to find some receivers. Because, as you said, the receiver spot is pretty deep this year. So, if you look at it, but there's not many, like, starting caliber running backs that you would put in your lineup every week. So I loaded up on running backs and then pretty much tried to go find a receiver that will break out.
Yeah, so sir, there's not too many 3-down starting running backs. That's the big key.
Yeah.
Every team's got a starter. It's just, are they putting up fantasy numbers, especially in a PPR
and as you say
league?
about the Jags, like with Etienne, and like honestly, I was not touching that running back situation because for the most part, I have a feeling the Jags are probably going to be down in a lot of games. And when you're losing, you generally don't run the ball as much, which is why Etienne has his potential, because he was a pass catcher out of the backfield. So,
they were planning to use him at running back, and then when he wasn't playing running back, they were going to line him up as receiver.
Yeah, play him in the slot or something like that. Yeah, exactly.
And you get somebody who's going to be featured like that, and he was going in the 5th round. I thought it was a absolute no-brainer. But
no, I hear you. But as I said, I have not touched any of those Jaguars. You can all have them.
No worries. I was going to take them, sir, and then I got shoved where the sun don't shine. Nick, can I jump on? Can I jump on this kind of draft strategy bandwagon that we're going on right now?
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's a couple questions. Draft strategy. I know we kind of. I think we're all in the same agreement here. But would you go running back, wide receiver, running back as the ideal? And that was Kyle who asked the question. Especially, it's a 12-person league.
Yeah. As I said, in the one league that we drafted in, I actually wrote down some of that particular point. Out of the 12 teams, in the first 2 rounds, 10 of them went running back, wide receiver, or like receiver / tight end. A combination of either start off with a receiver, then go running back, or I was one of the only teams to go running back. So a couple teams went quarterback, running back, or running back, quarterback. But then in the top 3 rounds, 4 teams went 2 running backs and a receiver / tight end. 5 teams went 2 receivers and a running back. So it tells you, like, in the first 3 rounds, get you. I would recommend the 2 running backs, 1 receiver set, but
can I just tell you guys something that I saw, especially in the 2 drafts that I had that were actually snake drafts? I wouldn't be upset taking one of the top 3 tight ends in the first if I get him in 2 and 4, yeah, Kelsey would be the one I take first. So that would be, if I get him in the second round, I'm pulling the trigger just from who I see who's left at the receiver position. Like, so first round, I'm going to take a running back. I don't care what spot that I have the pick in. I'm taking the running back. From there, if I can get Kelsey in the second, what's left at receiver versus what's left at tight end later in the draft, I think it's a absolute no-brainer.
Yeah,
And then,
as Nick mentioned, go ahead. As Nick mentioned last week, like if you want to have that, like pretty much if you put Kelsey, Kittle, if you just put them in tight end and forget about them, you have the position advantage over your opponents, barring if they have one of the other two, you know. So it's always good to get to lock down that spot. Like the only time you're going to take them out is during a bye week. Like, you know, if Kittle, if they're suiting up on Sunday or Monday or whatever they're playing, you put them in. Don't think about the matchup. Don't think about it. Just plug them in. Go worry about your other spots.
Yeah. So in a perfect world, if I'm drafting, I'm taking a running back in the first. If I get Kelsey in the second, I'll take Kelsey in the second, and then I'm going wide receiver, and I was going running back. So in the fifth. And then I would go alternate wide receiver and whoever the best available position player is from there on out until you found I know Kelsey's a first rounder, but if he ever slipped into the second, that's when I would take him.
He's been going late first, like 10 between the 12 teamer between 12 and 12.
It would be hard.
I'm not a big fan of kind of predicting like what I'm going to have after really my first pick. Because I like to let the field dictate where I'm going to go next. I ended up taking like Mark Andrews in round 4 because the 2 picks right before that were back-to-back tight ends. And in order to kind of play the strategy that I wanted to play, I needed a big pass-catching tight end. So I went Mark Andrews there, but that is probably the earliest I've ever taken a tight end. And usually something that I don't typically do, but I think there's such a play advantage to having some of those big time. And I think you can add Kyle Pitts in there with, after Julio Jones got traded, no first year run tight end has really great stats. So he's kind of like a unicorn in a way, but I do think that he should be pretty well, he should do well with Julio Jones out, but I think after the first 2 rounds, if you have a very solid running back and you have a very solid wide receiver, I think it's a good foundation. The exceptions to that would be Travis Kelce, who's the only tight end I would take in obviously the first round, and I think the only tight end worth taking in the first 2 rounds. And then I would go kind of Darren Waller, just based on volume. Kittle's had a little bit of injury problems last year, and now you don't know when this rookie quarterback is going to take over. Conflicting reports, so I think that scares me a little bit, but you walk away with Kittle as your tight end. I mean, you're in really great shape.
Hey, wait, listen, first of all, don't knock Jimmy G now. He does like throwing to my man, Mr. Kittle.
I was going to say,
don't get twisted now. To be honest with you, I think if Trey Lance sees the field, that opens up for like Ayuk and Debo more than it does Kittle. I think if Jimmy's back there, Kittle's stats go up.
I want to tie in B's question real quick, too, because I think it kind of plays into what we're talking about right now, which is, 4th pick, full PPR. Who would you target, assuming, CMC and Cook go 1 and 2, which I believe. He then further mentions Kamara scares him this year. I made the same comments last week.
In the same breath, Danny had the same type of question. He wanted to know, would you take Saquon at 4? So I guess that kind of goes into this question as well.
We talked about that a little bit last week, saying Saquon Barkley's probably closer to a second round running back than a first round running back. So that kind of answers that question. But I would, if it were me, I think there's like big question marks around all of the first round running backs, and I think you can even add Dalvin Cook and CMC to that like group of like questionable running backs, only because CMC was just hurt last year. Dalvin Cook has always had injury issues dating back to college. And then you just go further down the line, conditioning for Zeke, what's that going to look like? And now go ahead.
I think Derrick Henry has to be the
number 3.
One of the 2 guys that you're going to hopefully get there. I mean, it's I picked him at number 3 when I drafted this past weekend. So now you know how well I and that's a PPR league. Listen, Derrick Henry is just he's the guy.
You know what you're getting when you draft Derrick Henry. Like when they get in the red zone or when they're gonna hand out the ball to him. Like he's not coming off the field like very often.
So these would be the things that scare me, and I'm not gonna act like I made this stuff up or anything like that. But there's a site that I frequently use, and this is what they have for Derrick Henry, who they list as number 1 for busts this year. The big dog enters his 6th season, having led the league in carries in consecutive years, accumulating a worrisome amount of wear and tear. He has never been hurt before, so just throwing that out there. He now enters a transitioning offense that added Julio Jones and swapped out brilliant offensive coordinator Arthur Smith for retread Todd Dowling, whose 2017 Raiders ranked 30th in rushing attempts in Dowling's lone previous year as an offensive coordinator. Injury regression is always a real concern for Henry when he hasn't had any at all, as is projected game script. On paper, the Titans' defense is among football's worst. While Henry's career averages in wins are 106 total yards and 1.04 touchdowns versus 50.4 yards and 0.3 touchdowns in losses. I hope I said that right. His receiving projection already negligible. Henry has gone 8 straight college and pro seasons without a 20-catch season. The big dog is among 2021's riskiest first-round picks. So, injury standpoint, yeah.
Wait, time out.
Can we debuff?
Like even riskier than Saquon?
Can we debuff the when this dude was the coordinator in Oakland in 2017? Who was his running back? I don't know, but it wasn't fucking Derrick.
Derrick McFadden?
It wasn't fucking Derrick Henry. Yeah, so yeah, of course you might want to throw the ball more if that guy isn't in your backfield. Does he have a lot of touches? Yes, but that's the whole reason why you're picking him at number 3 is because he has a lot of touches. Listen,
is he going to get a lot of? Is he going to get a lot of touches when the team is down almost every single week? That would be the question. Because it seems like in losses he doesn't get a lot of touches. That would be the thing.
As I said before, when you're down, you're not going to run the ball. You got to pass that thing.
You also have Julio Jones now and AJ Brown. So you have 2 great wide receivers. You have Tannehill's going to throw the ball a lot. So that just kind of further, to me, there's not. I think if you list any running back in the first round, I think there's stuff you can look at and say there's a reason why this person is not good. All of that to say, I think, and I know I beat the drum a lot last week, but I would go as early as like the 4th pick, taking Tyreek Hill. I really think he's going to be, really, really good. And I think you'll be able to get a running back in the 2nd round. I think if there is none that you like available, I think you could probably get another wide receiver and then double down on a tight end, like Darren Waller in round 3. And then there is a series of running backs who are pass-catching running backs that I think you can get who, Kareem Hunt and other guys like that, where you have 2 elite-level wide receivers at that point. You also have an elite volume tight end, which gives you an advantage over most of the league. What are you really looking for from your running backs at that point? 15 points a week, which, 5 or 6 catches from Kareem Hunt should be able to get you there. And that's probably where I would go. But again, you kind of want to see where your league is leaning towards. In my one league, it became pretty obvious that people were afraid at just how shallow the pool is of talented running backs. And a lot of running backs went super, super early. So I ended up picking A.J. Dillon in round 6, which I think you could probably get him in other leagues in like round 8 or 9. But he was the best available at the time.
Both of the drafts that I did, 10 out of the first 12 picks were running backs. So that just goes to show you how,
including the first 8 in one league, we said the first 8 picks were all running backs. So.
Yeah, just the writings on the wall. The running back pool is very small as far as who are the guys. Yeah.
Between that and between the shallow running back pool and a deep receiving pool, like I would say, make sure you get one of get you a top running back to start the draft, and then puzzle everything else together later on.
Now, do you guys agree that we're all on the same strategy of not ever drafting a quarterback early this year? Or is there a point in time where you would draft a quarterback earlier than round 6?
I mean, if you got Tyreek Hill in the first round and you wanted to pair Patrick Mahomes with him, I don't.
Yeah. It depends on the league scoring also, because like I'm in one league where you get bonus points for like 300 yards, 350, 400. So I mean, if you want to try to play those bonuses a little bit, I mean, it depends. But usually, I usually try to hold off on quarterbacks until, as you said, the 6th, 7th round. In the one draft I did, I took a quarterback in the 6th just because, I don't know, quarterbacks were going. I was like, let me make sure I get somebody like that I actually wanted. So
I guess it also depends on the depth of the league. 14 teams.
Yeah. If it's a 10, 12, if it's 10, 12, you can wait off a little bit or maybe grab one like the 6th or 7th. If it's a 14 team, then I mean, there's a little rough because once you get past like the starters, like you figure if every team has like 2 quarterbacks, someone's gonna get that 27th ranked quarterback. And I mean, good, you're only gonna play him for a week, but it's gonna be rough.
Because Tannehill went in the 10th round, so like I would never pass up somebody that you can get in the 4th. Or if you're going to take, I don't know how early I would ever take Mahomes.
Yes, in the one league, you win the first round, which I thought that was a little silly.
It is silly.
Hey, it's silly for them unless Mahomes has the best year of his career, in which case he'll probably win. He'll probably win you a fantasy league because that would be the best year of all time.
No,
I don't know.
My thing is, I feel like if you took Mahomes in the first round, the rest of your team is probably not going to look the best.
No,
it's going to look very different than the rest of ours. That's for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, it's amazing how like if you draft like I said, as I told you, I drafted 3 running backs, and like the rest of my team is pretty much it's a lot of youth and a lot of upside in a lot of players.
One question from Christy: will Devontae Smith be the top wide receiver? I don't know if you mean in terms of rookies. I think it's possible, but if you mean in terms
top
of
receiver for the team.
I think if you're talking the entire NFL, I don't necessarily know if I would take that bet. But
I believe the answer is no if we're talking about the whole NFL. If we're talking about the Eagles, possibly.
I had it phrased a little differently the way that I was going to ask it, Nick. How good do you expect him to be as far as fantasy wise? Would you draft him as one of your 3 starting running backs?
Yeah, I mean, I
wide
think
receivers.
I think he's right around the 100th best player.
Yes, but this is your guy. This is your team. Your fantasy team.
I don't typically draft my guys unless I feel like I'm getting good value. I kind of take my heart out of the equation. I know we talked in the pre-show about me drafting you, Jalen Hurts. He's our backup, and he costs $3 in an auction draft. So that to me was good value.
Said it cost $5.
No,
you just keep fucking discounting yourself now.
It was $3 or $4. It was $3 or $4, but it definitely wasn't $5. I don't think. But correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm not usually homer picking. Go ahead.
No. Yeah, you're a homer. But we did forget one thing. It just got brought up in chat.
Yeah, we never did those.
Come on, guys. Well, we're slacking. We half the episode. We didn't do a shot yet. Don't worry, Michelle. We're still doing shots. Shh.
She said, "Shut up."
Cheers. Oh, sorry. Ooh.
I'm doing a peanut butter and jelly shot that very much just tastes like peanut butter and not a whole
How
lot.
good is that?
I mean, you can come over and have some. I don't have much left. Michelle seems to like it. But.
Michelle's a good judge of character, except for you. So I'm all right with it.
Mr. E's making fun of the fact that Devontae Smith is very skinny.
Do you want a fat receiver, though? I mean,
aren't we all just jealous of the skinny guy, Mr. E? Technically, Mr. E is probably one of the skinniest guys I know besides titties.
I won't read all of these, but for anybody that's asking, The site I use is Establish the Run, so I'll give them a plug. Evan Silva, who I follow on Twitter and everything else, was a former writer for Roto World. Started his own company with a guy, Adam Levitan, who's really a great DFS player. So if you're like really serious about fantasy football, I would recommend this site. Their draft kit is currently $35.99. It has their top 50, which is always changing. It has the team previews for every single team, but it also goes over overvalued and busts. So rather than plagiarize, I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to give you a tidbit of what these guys are thinking in terms of overvalued and in terms of busts. So their overvalued list is Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift, Cortland Sutton, James Robinson, Ronald Jones, Russell Gage. And their busts that they listed are Derrick Henry, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Michael Thomas, Kenny Golladay, Dallas Goedert, DJ Shark. So that doesn't necessarily mean, because I've listened to their podcasts, which are free right now on Apple iTunes, if you want to at least listen to them and see what all the hoopla is about.
After you listen to our show, then you can tune into theirs. So,
SBFS show. Alphabet Soup Show.
Listen to us first, all right?
There you go. But they kind of list that there are times where it's necessity to draft those guys that are on that list of busts or overvalued. Those are just guys that at their current ADP, which is something we talked about last week, you might be better off drafting somebody else instead. So,
how is Jonathan Taylor overvalued?
Well, I don't want to give away all their stuff, but they put he is currently going as RB7 in high-stakes leagues. These are leagues where the buy-in is well over $1,500. Where he regularly goes in the first round, I'm ranking him as RB9, so the value or the overvalued is just 2. But Taylor's outlook is most threatened by negative game script that could favor pass-catching specialist Naheem Hines. Including last year's postseason, Taylor played fewer than 70% of Indianapolis's offensive snaps in 15 of 16 games and averaged 108 yards from scrimmage in victories versus 71 yards in defeats. Then it goes on to talk about, injuries to Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson and the return of Marlon Mack. So I'm not going to go so far into it. In the cold straw, Seattle in week 1, the Rams in week 2, and visit the Dolphins and Ravens in weeks 4 and 5. So Indianapolis is likely to be an underdog in 4 of its opening 5 games. So, fantasy is a long season, but you take a guy like Jonathan Taylor, I think the point they're trying to make, and you start the season 1 and 4 or 2 and 3, you got a lot of work to do to kind of get into that playoff hunt. So that's necessarily the case. I will go out I'll tell you right now, they're one of their biggest undervalued guys last year was Josh Jacobs, but also was DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins had an elite level year. So nobody's right all the time, but these are their opinions. So
Nick, Diaz wants to know, what did you do with our trophy? You were supposed to bring it this week. He was very upset that we didn't have the Nickety Split, Nicky Walk-Off plaque behind you.
I would have loved to take the trophy home, but I am not a fireman, and I like the idea of it being in our town forever. That was the big trophy. The small trophy, I'm not sure what happened to it, but I will say that as Chris Lachowski was leaving the field, he had a fireman-shaped, what looked like trophy under his shirt, which I thought was a little weird.
I did see him walking away with it, right?
I'm not going to say that he stole it. I don't know, but he did have a rather large thing under his shirt in the shape of a fireman.
All right, so he had the 5-finger discount on the way out? So not 10, sir. He only used one hand, Mo.
No, I'm saying it wasn't me. My hands.
You weren't there, Mo. You weren't there. You're good to go.
So
hilarious.
As a wise man once said, it wasn't me.
It wasn't. What other questions do we have?
I think that was it. I think we went through all the Latch doesn't know what we're talking about. Yes, you do, motherfucker.
Sir, what do you got? You got any questions? I think my
No,
biggest takeaway from doing a draft for anybody who hasn't drafted yet, these are just things that I would look at based in your own leagues, just based on the leagues that I've drafted in already, is just the sheer amount of fear in that shallow running back pool. And just the fact that really, like we talked about, every running back going in the first round has at least some level of question mark. I mean, I would not hesitate at all to take CMC, but like I said, he was hurt a little bit last year, and you never know when he starts to progressively get more and more hurt. That's just my feeling.
Actually, I do got a question though. Like, after Mahomes, who would be your second quarterback off the board?
Lamar Jackson.
No one. I wouldn't take one until it could be.
No.
I think his question is who though when the time comes.
Who would it be? Like, who would it be off the after Mahomes? Who would be followed him?
I would go Lamar Jackson.
Josh Allen.
What about you?
No. I would probably go Josh Allen, but I was in this one league where
Jimmy G, Trey Lance.
No. Take it easy. No, so in the one league I'm in, it was Mahomes went and then followed up by Kyler Murray. Actually, was followed up over Mahomes and over Lamar and Josh Allen.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kyler Murray finished ahead of some of those guys, but I wouldn't necessarily. I think sometimes I
do like Josh Allen though. That's probably like, well, I probably won't end up getting him in any leagues just because I'm not taking a quarterback that high. But I do like his passing and like in the red zone, he's a threat to score also.
Would any of you guys take Dak Prescott without him playing a preseason game?
I would, yeah. I like that.
Because he's going high. He's going like
his ADP is too high.
Yeah, he's going really high for my liking. Like I mentioned it before, a quarterback that I would take is Justin. I would take a Justin Herbert is actually a quarterback that I'm pretty high on this year. Like I think he's an MVP sleeper, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he's a good quarterback. He's somebody that I targeted. The guy right before me, I think, knew I had Keenan Allen. So he took Justin Herbert right before I could. That was my next pick, so I took Tom Brady, and I feel okay with that. It was either Tom Brady or Jalen Hurts were the next two available, so I took it.
Is that something everyone does? They try to pair. That's like
I was going to say the connection. I mean,
pair receiver with their quarterback.
I do like doing the connection, but the only downside is if like the team struggles, two of your players just hit the toilet. You know what I'm saying? Like if you got Herbert and Keenan Allen and they lose like say 30-10 or 30-3, not only did just Herbert have a bad game, but Keenan Allen probably had a bad game as well.
Maybe or he
I'm just saying it's
the counting stats and just no touchdowns.
Keenan might have went for like 150 but no touchdown, but I'm just saying it's for the most part odds are likely that they both didn't have a great game.
Can I give the biggest tip that I took away from this weekend drafting that I don't know if a lot of people pay attention to, but they should? When you draft a snake draft and you're towards the bottom or the top of the draft, when it comes to the turn, before it's your turn to pick, please look at the people who are drafting after you at the turn. So if you're drafting 10 and 11 and 12 and they both have running backs, then take the best receiver or the best tight end that fits your team.
Yeah.
Whatever position is going to fit you better, because the people after you both have two starting running backs. They're not going to take that last running back on the board. What they're going to do is take the best wide receiver off the board, which is the guy you have to take before rather than later.
You can use that also with quarterbacks too. Like if the team's like as you said, if you're like say the 10th pick and you realize every other team has a quarterback and you still looking for a quarterback, take a running back receiver and then on the turn come back and take a quarterback.
9 times out of 10 they'll still be there, and if they're not,
absolutely. Then most teams are not taking two quarterbacks early in the draft. I mean, there are teams, but most of the teams will not do that too.
That goes for any of the one position starting, tight end, quarterback,
tight end, good defense, kicker.
You take started, two.
No, anybody, don't take two kickers. Don't take two defenses. Don't do that unless you have to.
Please don't do it. Yeah, unless it's a part of your rules.
Unless it's an auction and you have to take two defenses, then don't take two defenses.
Mr. E is still super salty about the one league that's been around for fucking probably longer than he's been alive. that gets double points for out of position scores. So if your receiver runs the ball in, it counts double, and if your
running back
catches a pass, it counts as double. And he's been butthurt since he didn't read the rules before the draft for, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 years.
You mad, bro?
A little mad. But listen,
a little bit.
We all learned. He had learned. It was an expensive.
Hence why I said before, make sure you
experience.
know your league settings before you draft your team.
And
yeah, but you're not going to draft the only person you would ever draft in that sense is a running back that catches passes and could possibly run in. Like, you're not going to predict that a wide receiver is going to throw.
Derrick Henry's value drops a little bit because he ain't catching no receiver.
But I'm saying you're not going to be like, oh, Devontae Adams, he might throw a pass to Aaron Rodgers. Or something. I think I'm going to draft him over, such and such. It's just,
no, Nick.
I agree with Mr. E. I don't like that gimmick shit.
I understand. But the rules are the rules. And the rules have been the same way for the last 15 years. They're not changing anytime soon. So you have the 49ers who love to do reverses in the red zone, and you have either Ayuk or Debo. Yeah. So that kind of raises them up a little, not a lot, right? It's going to happen once or twice a year. Yeah.
Or in the same thing, if you're comparing, say, like a Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook raises up a little bit higher than Derrick Henry because his possibility of catching one
and I know it's not the norm, right? But for people in auction leagues, do not leave money on the Mr. I am looking at you. Do not leave money on the table. Please, God, if you ended up with more than $20 in your stash at the end, I'm going to be so upset. Pay a little extra money. That's it. $0 in your bank account at the end of a auction draft. That's what you have to go for. If there's one starting,
you get them good deals.
If there's one starting running back left and you don't have a starting running back on your team, pay for him. It doesn't matter. That's how we got Kareem Hunt in our rookie year, and we won a championship. Mr. E said, he's going to cost too much. But it didn't matter. You didn't have another starting running back. And Kareem Hunt had one of the best rookie seasons of all time, especially in that format of the league that we had.
You're still paying for him.
Shut up, sir. I didn't know he was going to be the best punter of all time, too. It's just not the same fucking thing.
So you would say Tyreek Hill is your first receiver off the board?
Yes.
No, all right, because, again, in the same league, I've only done one draft so far. He was the third receiver off the board. No, not counting Kelsey, who went also before him.
Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs?
Yes. Kelsey went, I know Adams went 9th. Oh, Kelsey went 12th. Diggs went 14, and then Tyreek went 17.
That's pretty good value for Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. I had the first pick, so I was like, oh, if Tyreek drops to me, y'all in trouble. But he did, in fact, did not drop to me, so.
That would have been brutal.
Yeah, you put C-Mac with Tyreek together, that's yeah.
Just crown you the champ right then and there. All right, any last minute questions?
No, they can't win anything now, Nick. You just gave all the
I'm saying, y'all can't win, but
like it's win the fantasy league.
You can gain some knowledge though.
There you go, sir. Mr. E has one last on the way out. Who is the number one wide receiver on your 49ers?
George Kittle.
Damn, that's cold-blooded, Mo. Who are you drafting?
That's not in the football. So
who are you drafting first, Ayuk or Debo?
Oh, it's tough.
Ayuk.
Probably go Ayuk. They're both going to be good, but I'd probably go Ayuk just because also, like, as you said, like the screen game, like not the screen game, like the run reverses and all that. He does more for that offense. Debo's a beast, but Ayuk will get the ball more.
Listen, for anyone who's hanging out after, we're going to open up the chat room for anyone to come in. Feel free to come in, bring a drink, bring a shot, hang out with us. If you have any questions you were too nervous to answer or to ask over the chat.
Too nervous.
I don't know, man.
Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. next week will be, unless something late breaking happens, will be less fantasy, more future related, where we talk about, futures for MVP, offensive, rookie of the year, all that good stuff.
Division winners.
And then the week after that, we are into week 1 of the NFL season. And we have a new layout, which we talked about, and it'll be a lot of fun. So thanks, guys, as always, to tune in. Go Guardians.